So I want to talk about duality because last night and this morning there were a couple comments and emails and stuff that people sent and conversations. And I started picking up kind of a theme that's helpful to people. We consistently live in this concept of duality without realizing it. Remember, God, perfect love, oneness, it's peace, oneness, like that. It's just God. There isn't God and something else. Religion, philosophy, nature, everything in this universe tells us differently. It says, if there is a God, then there's something else. Good versus evil. There's always these two things. Should I or should I not do this thing? And Jesus in A Course in Miracles says this is the source of splitting headaches because our minds get split. He also says it's the source of depression because you have no energy to hold you up because you're constantly divided in what you want to do. In other words, there are leaks. When there's something you want to do, but you think it might not be the right thing, do you understand? You're divided. It's called conflicted. Conflict has nothing to do with God. That's man-made. The Bible tells us, God did not create fear in man, but only a sound mind. I don't feel very sound. Should I date this person or this person? Should I buy this car or that car? Every day. Should I take one, vitamin or two? Should I use this brand or that brand? Go in any store, and it's conflict. Choose us. Which magazine should I read? Which newspaper? Which story should I believe? The Democrats say this, the Republicans say, oh, what am I going to do? It's the world constantly trying to rip us apart, trying to shred us, dismantle us in an unhealthy way. God tells us, Christ consciousness tells us, there is a way to be out of that, to be in the world but not of the world, to know what to do, because there is actually only one answer. We just don't typically know how to find it. Why? Because we're divided already, so we want divided answers. Am I a male or a female? And if I'm a male, can I embrace femininity or is that not okay? Constantly. Am I this or that? Am I old or am I young? I don't quite know who I am, so I'm going to need quite a few options of what to choose. So one can fit each of my multiple personalities. Yeah, I'm a male, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a blah, 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 on and on. So I need lots of options. It just adds to more and more to the problem. There's only one solution. There's only one answer. God is one. The Lord thy God is one. That's a fundamental law, truth, in most thought systems. The Lord thy God is one. That means I can know the oneness. And it also means, believe it or not, on a practical level, there's really only one answer to anything we're trying to get. We don't, like I said, typically know how to find it, but there really is only one answer. It's the answer that is most aligned with love. That's why some people do, what would Jesus do? That's kind of a fundamental Christian concept, but it's actually good to do that. What would love do? What would God do? Not what should I do? I'm the one who got myself into this. I'm the one who actually thinks there's different options of cars. And I know that sounds logical. But which car is the right one to represent healthiness, wholeness? Should I talk to my ex? Well, they scream and tell me derogatory things every time. I didn't say hate them, but should I be talking to them? It may not be the right thing because I'm better than them. No, it's not actually healthy for them either. My decision is not should I talk to my ex or not. It's what does healthiness call for in this moment? The answer's already there. Well, but what if now you're going into duality again? What if they get madder? I don't know. I'm just going to choose healthiness. And what if they react? And what if this? And what if that? Don't know. Let others do as they may, but as for me and mine, I will serve the living God. So I'm just going to stay in the center. My understanding of what center is. There's an important concept, and I'll just launch into this right away because it just came into me again. So the way we do things, again, the duality. And when you have to make a decision, it's an interesting part in A Course in Miracles, in the footnotes, the diary notes of Helen who wrote it. She's hearing Jesus talk to her about such mundane things as getting a coat. Now, I'm not going to go into the full story, but she's going to go out and shop for a coat. And imagine this. You're going to go out and buy whatever you guys buy, shoes or coats or whatever. Or if you're like me, it's donuts and cookies every day. Every day. Man. Anyway, I love that new donut store in town. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you ask, they'll actually heat up the chocolate and re-dunk your chocolate donuts. I don't know if they call them double doozies, but they should. Anyway. So here's the truth, though. Jesus tells Helen, whether you want a donut, a coat, a pair of shoes, a new car, anything, he says, why don't you ask me to help you find it? Let me help you. He uses the word minutia. Let me help you even with the minutiae of life. Oh, well, we don't want to bother Jesus. He's got a lot of people praying to him all the time. He's probably got a lot of, emails to get through every day. Again, that's not God speaking in us. That's an excuse. So whether you call it Jesus, whether you call it God, whether you call it Spirit, the Holy Spirit, God is asking us, why don't you just cast your cares upon me? Because I care for you. And you can try all the no, and all your reasons. They're absurd, so just drop them. Don't even try any excuses. Let's just go ahead and try it. All right, all I need is I'm going to drive into Unity today for a service, or I'm going to turn Unity on today to watch the service. I think I can handle that. Enter on my computer. It doesn't matter how small the item is, try it. Just say, because here's the trick. We have forgotten what to ask for. So when you think, because here's what happens. You guys have heard of visualization, right? The techniques that advertised in some of these programs that became billion-dollar, adventures for people, videos and movies and books about how to manifest what you want. There's a lot of very popular people teachers out there manifesting. So be honest. Don't try to be all cosmic on me here. Be honest. Give me examples of the kinds of things people often would visualize. Jobs, money, house, car, relationship. Oh yeah, of course. I want my twin soul. Okay. Where is my twin? Okay. The one with a fin. Don't get me started, right? My guides have told me that he's a dolphin. Anyway. Sirius. Now, see, you wouldn't understand that, but the dolphins are from Sirius, but that's another story. Anyway, so you guys named these things, and the people watching heard you, right? Listen to it. Cars, money, job, relations, okay? However, and you'd use the techniques. So they sit down, they close their eyes, and okay, I'm visualizing, this new job. I'm visualizing this and that. Hold it a minute. As is often the case, I'm going to tell you all of that is incorrect. It's wrong. I know we don't like to use wrong, but I like it. So it's wrong. Now, you have all these teachers that are far more popular, known than me, and make millions of dollars off this topic. Manifest, close your eyes and visualize. God tells us, Christ consciousness tells us, and Christ, I promise you, knows better than any of the authors, teachers, books, DVDs. You don't even know what to ask for. Don't close your eyes and start visualizing a new relationship. You don't even know if that's in your highest good. You don't even know if that's the car you should be praying for. Stop asking for stuff other than one thing, because the Lord thy God is one. So, for example, this morning in my prayers, I always say this. It sounds strange and disempowering, but it's the opposite. I have forgotten what to ask for. Try that, humility. Try this. And the truth is, because that means the little self bows. Then you do this. What do you really, 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 really want? What do you think you want in a soulmate, twin soul relationship? Love. Why do you think you want a car that works well? So you don't have to worry about it starting every day. What you really want is a feeling, not a thing. What's the ultimate feeling we want? God. So in my prayers, meditations, I had this thought because I'm, once again saying, I'm going to sit with some folks and we're working on manifesting this thing, this concept. In case you don't know this, I've talked about it briefly, but we're looking at creating a retreat. Whether it's here in Sedona or maybe Colorado somewhere, we're going to create a retreat center for larger kinds of events and so forth, but more of an outdoor kind of experience. So we're putting this together. Now, typically what I can say, because they're all the folks kind of involved, and you could go on my Friends of Michael Mirdad Facebook page and ask more about it or something. But when we're talking about it, we're doing our work, we're doing our prayer, we're doing our opening, and so on and so on. Now, when I was doing that again today, it's easy for me to close my eyes and visualize these things. We all do that to a degree. And there is a right time and place for the visualization, but not before connecting with God. So what I do is this. I could say, okay, God, I had this inspiration to get this retreat. So help us get this retreat. I'm visualizing a retreat. I'm visualizing this and that and the other. But here's the trick. As soon as you get an inspiration for a twin soul or a coat or a pair of shoes or a donut or a retreat or whatever it is, all that's really happening is it is a test. So now in consciousness, it becomes like a pole stuck in the ground and it becomes a test, a goal. So Spirit says, what would you like? Oh, I want to get a retreat. God doesn't say, oh, you should get one. They're cool. What happens is God says, what I care about is only one thing ever, consciousness. You're either awake or you're not. I prefer that you find awake. So when we say I would like a retreat, there's this post stuck in the mind. And everything now is going to be about how you handle yourself getting to that retreat. Not how do I get the retreat, but the consciousness with which I pursue the retreat. And if I get no retreat, but I have said what I really want is peace. What I really want is the presence of God. With or without the retreat, that's proper prayer. That's proper visualization. Show me what to visualize, God. And first and foremost, I'm going to visualize not me getting stuff. Look, there's my shoes. Instead, I see myself being completely successful in my test. I see myself being totally at peace. An amazing example to others in their pursuit of their tests. Because all that happened when you said, I would like a coat, a twin soul, it became an object with which you could be tested. Because God doesn't care about the item. God cares about consciousness. And when you pursue the item, even when you think the item is spiritual, why wouldn't God want me to get that new spiritual book? It's spiritual. God wants, no, that's not it. God wants you to have peace with or without the book, with or without the lottery, with or without anything. But we kind of do this thing where we sabotage that because we have forgotten that having the presence of God will give us everything else. Seek first the kingdom of heaven and everything else will follow. If I have, look at Solomon. Solomon says, wisdom becomes my mantra. And he says, I know that if I have wisdom, everything else comes. And guess what? Kind of worked out. He became the wealthiest man in history. It kind of worked out for Solomon. He didn't get it through, say, military tactics, business investments, lotteries. He did it by asking for the presence of God in mind. So whatever you're looking for, twin souls and whatever else, if you say, I know what I'm going to visualize. I heard this video and it said, anything you want because you are God. That's one of the most dangerous things to ever say. The person that can't find their car keys is not God. The person who can't remember milk at the grocery store is not God. The person who still thinks, as you drive by somebody who's cut you off, that's not God. That's not God. So don't do the I am God. Try I don't know. And as you humble I don't know, you rise in, but I'm ready to. Let God help you remember who you are. I know it can sound almost fundamental Christian when I say things like that, but it's the truth. There is a power that's never changed, and that wouldn't be us. We daydream that we're not divine anymore, but there's a consciousness that didn't daydream. So let's call upon that consciousness. That consciousness is really not separate from us, but it will seem like it until we really learn how to get this. I want that consciousness. I don't want stuff. The reason people pray for stuff is because they think it'll give them the feeling of that consciousness. And it never in history has worked. Not one cocaine high ever actually gave you the euphoria of God. It only gave you a synthetic euphoria that wears off and causes ill results. Not one joint has ever really calmed you down the way meditation does. None of these things work. I'm not saying do them or don't do them. I'm just saying they don't work for the thing that ultimately we're looking for. Only God can give us God. And the other things can only give us temporary, so why do we go for them? In a way, that's what it means by thou shalt not worship false gods. It means don't invest in things that don't even make sense. They're dead. This is going to give me something. It doesn't even exist. It's dead. First of all, it's a hologram. That's like worshiping film on a screen. Oh, look at that. A really pretty picture on the screen. Let's worship it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. All that matters is God. And when you don't understand that, you fear that, you'll run. You'll hide. You'll come up with other things to put, the false things to put on the altar because you don't know what else to do. And that's why even people that have had the most difficult lives, the unenlightened lifestyles, have found God because they found humility. They didn't have to be those people who were raised in ashrams and prayed and meditated every day. Because some of those people do so much of it that it becomes their God. The thing they do becomes their God. I do yoga every day. I've been doing yoga for 50 years. Look at me. But then the yoga becomes the thing you think is giving you peace. Then all of a sudden you're sort of, it was great. Your yoga work got you up to prayer work every day, eating healthier, got you up to a 7 on a 10 scale. Wow, pretty cool. There's somebody else out there that was a 0 and becomes a 10 in a weekend because they fell to the ground and said, of myself, I can do nothing. Like a good 12-stepper, a sincere one. They say, I can't do this of myself. You see, that humility, man, boom, it can just launch us into enlightenment. And I respect it, but it's the consciousness. It's that intention. But we all struggle with these dualities, shaming ourselves constantly. Learn to say, I don't know what to pray for. I don't know what to ask for. And then ask, show me. Show me, God. What would be oh, that's right. Tranquility. That one wasn't on my list I read in that book. Job, money, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. That wasn't in there anyway. Let me look. No, I'm looking. It's nowhere in the list. What I need really is the presence of God. And in my mornings, I do that all the time. I sort of ask, what is the consciousness for me today? And like today, I kind of went, love, and then it turns, it's love and abundance. And then love and abundance became inspiration. Why? Because inspiration will give me all that I need to be guided, especially in this project. Then I went inspiration and clarity. Why? Because I want clear guidance in all that I do in relation to this project we're talking about. Then I went, inspiration and clarity are somewhat similar to a degree. So I'm good with those. And then I added another word. You see, it could be abundance, because the abundance it takes to help manifest this event, this project. So I zero in. I kind of do micro adjustments on what is the consciousness. And then I feel it, some micro adjustments based on what really makes sense for the consciousness for me today. What is my keyword to access the program called God today? And the keyword, your little password for me is, let's say, peace or clarity or inspiration. I type that in, so to speak, in my mind by calling it upon me, and then the program opens. You see, I've opened the software called God. It opens, and then you feel that. And you call that in, and you breathe that in, and you let it grow and multiply in your being, in your consciousness. Then, after you've anchored in what we could call an abundance of God's presence, then think about what to visualize. Because now it's organic. If I were to say to you, if you're the perfect presence of God and let's all just pretend we use one word, joy. I am the joy of God. Do you see how practical it is to ask yourself this? Who to date? I'm going to date a person that resonates with joy. Now, can any of you think of anyone you've ever dated that didn't resonate with joy? That would be a yes for those watching online. Okay? So the exercise is that practical. If I am the presence of God in my meditations and I'm going to visualize my twin soul, soulmate, this and that and the other, don't yet. Start with what it's like to be the presence of joy. Start with that. Then, what would such a person look like, feel like, if they resonate with joy? Because joy or nothing. What would they be like? Not who would they look like? Oh, of course, that actor, that actress, got to look like them. That's silly. You want somebody that looks like them and is a nutcase? No. I want joy in the form of a partner. I also want joy in the form of friendships. I want joy in my financial investments. I don't want the pulling your hair out mantra. Oh my God, the market, joy. Joy can look like something if we use our imagination. So we find ourselves constantly conflicted. What are we going to do with all these inner conflicts? And we're conflicted even in our personality styles. For me, based on lifetimes, based on this lifetime, I can easily say there's a warrior side, like let's go, and there's also this really wonderful mystic saint side. So what we do as human beings is think to do one or the other. Well, clearly just be a saint. Not get anything done, but be a saint. Oh no, I don't like that. I'm going to be a warrior because we got to get stuff done, and forget the center, the love of a saint. So human beings do this. They either become one or another personality type, even though they have another side. Or they swing with these two extremes, and people will often perceive them as a bit nutty. Like, you seemed mystical, and now you're mean. And they think that's duality because it looks that way. Because they don't understand, those are just two sides of me. You, me, whomever. So then what's the solution? And then you can say, center. Absolutely. But there's fake centered people. I don't do either of those polarities, man. I just center in God. And they're just bliss bunnies, and you get nowhere with them either. So you have the one or the other. Okay. I guess you never heard me say that. So there's the falsely centered. I'm one, the other, I'm both, or I'm this. And none of those are actually real. There's you could say, a fourth alternative. Obviously, that's the one we're looking for. But here's what I would endorse or encourage you to do. Instead of swinging way over here, what I'm going to do is tighten up the movement. 5-10%. I am going to choose to be centered in God. But I know that sometimes God will help me pull out the saint mystic and then the warrior. And I'll just kind of move safely in that center area. Center is not this per se, where I do nothing. I still am here, and God will help use those parts of us. God won't say, oh, no. Not the saint, not the, neither the saint nor the other, or neither the swinging. God's going to say there's another way. Let me help you utilize your own parts. But they're not going to be conflicted. That's the point. If you swing only to one, or if you swing from one to the other, it's because you're conflicted, or it'll result in being conflicted. Being conflicted, divided, we fall. So it can't bring good things. But humans do this all the time, especially those of us that are trying to be spiritual. There's a side of me, we say, some of us, there's a side of me that's trying to be spiritual, but dang, there's this other side. Instead of cursing that other side, and you think that's a good thing. I'm being spiritual, there is no other side. Look at me. I'm just spiritual. And Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, you don't realize, repressing the feelings of the other one is going to destroy you. Pretending it's not there is going to hurt you, but also acting it out will destroy you. Wait a second. You lost me here. Jesus, God, whatever. You lost me. You told me if I act it out, I'm up creek, and if I suppress it, I'm up creek. Yeah, he says, yeah, it kind of sucks, doesn't it? I'm sorry, was there another option? Christ, God, the Spirit of God, the Divine Mother says, I'm glad you asked. Wow. Nobody tends to ask that, Spirit says. You just think you're going to just do one or the other. even with your good intentions. These are good intentions. I'm a humble person. I'm going to just be spiritual. All those other things are just cravings of the body. Samsara, this and that, any other term you want to use from any culture, it's just illusion. I will not give into it. Honorable, that's pretty cool. It's honorable, but it's not going to get you there because you're pretending something isn't there. Instead, I see it. It doesn't have power over me. I'm the one. I'm the one with those. Those are not the things with me. I'm not a piece of clothing on them. They're a piece of clothing I wear. So what I'm going to do is just reel it in and say, I'm here. I'm the chooser. So, instead of getting caught in should I follow this one? Should I follow that one? I'm the chooser. That's partly what it means by free will. Free will doesn't mean, we're allowed to do whatever we want. Woohoo! Like party time. Free will actually means the moment you decide to choose the only thing that is the choice, the only God choice. When we choose free will, true free will means you're choosing freely, but it also means you're choosing the things that set you free. Free will does not mean what humans think it means. God gave us free will. We're allowed to do, sky's the limit. Let's go nuts. Free will means I will only will to do the things that set me free, which means I'm going to make the God decisions. So do I repress these feelings? Do I act them out? There are people, that because I've written a couple of books on sacred sexuality, for example, and I've gone to conferences and workshops on this topic, and I've talked to people privately in groups around this topic, and there's a lot of people in that subject, sacred sexuality, and what they'll do, because there's churches I go and speak to, and they're swung over here going, we don't do any of that. That's naughty. Then I go to these conferences, they're like, we do everything. They do. It's wild. And they're like, we endorse saying yes. Say yes to your urges. Say yes to everything. And it sounds so, I want some of that. But it's not the answer. Because they're saying yes to things that are not yet even sorted out, who that person is and what they're saying yes to. All they're saying yes to really is another endorphin rush, another stimulation. So they're all doing these in these conferences. One speaker after another, say yes to your goddess and get naked and let's all make love. And it's like, that sounds so cool. They even use the word love. It all sounds so convincing. And then I get up there and I say, rule number 1. Why are you guys assuming I'm going to be mean to these people? Listen. So I say, rule number 1, you have to learn to say no before you say yes. So that I know that I'm the chooser. Do not give me this say yes to everything if you don't even know how or when to say no. Because if you don't know there's times to say no, and you always say yes, you're going to end up being an abuser or being abused. Because you're not in God. I'm not saying say no. Learn to say no before you say yes, which is another way of saying learn to say yes or no based on knowing why you say it. Not a compulsion, not an automatic thing. So I'm centered in God enough to go, which way should I go with this? Today, this is the right thing. Still in center. Center is not a thin line. Give it some movement. And I can move a little this way and I'm still in my center because God's guiding me to go a little this way, the saint. And today, a little more of the strength is needed. Is that making sense? Give yourself some movement instead of denying. And for me, I'm not denying or repressing the other two because they're not an option. They're not a thing out there that I'm denying. They're not even there. Once I learn who I am and what my center is, I am living in my center in the real kind of way. And these are no longer there, so I'm not choosing this versus that. I'm just choosing this, and it's all that is. And without conflict, without duality, man, I start, wow, there's kind of a tranquility that's coming about. I'm not split between things anymore. I'm not split between this and that and the other. So the idea is from day to night and night to day, I can live in this consciousness. And it doesn't at all look like I'm being all mystic. If I say living spiritually, One time I was staying at someone's house while on tour. They, a lot of churches and centers, they put you up somewhere. And I was staying with this guy, and this woman came and knocked on the door and, brought a gift like some munchies in case I wanted them. She said, she knocks and the guy answers, is Michael here? Yes, he is. Oh, I can feel the vibrations. And she goes, what do you guys do while Michael's here staying with you? Do you get to talk to him? What do you guys do? Fortunately, this guy had a great sense of humor. So he was really respectful. He's like, oh yeah, everything's fine, and answering respectfully. But the way he told the story to me, he's like, yeah, she's like, what do you guys do? He goes, I just wanted to say, yeah, all we do is sit around and ohm, So to maintain a true healthiness in mind, body, and soul, that cannot be done by what foods we choose and by what things on the outside that we do. First, healthy mind, a non-conflicted mind. And then it's like Jesus was saying, you go to some person's house, and out of all their love, they're vegetarian or whatever. You don't have to shame them for that and say, wait, I thought you would have some bloody steak for me, or vice versa. Oh, I see you're a meat eater. I should probably leave now. Shaming people isn't going to make you healthy. Do your best to be, allowing and tolerant, practicing. If I live in this center, what would that look like? And you don't need someone to tell you what it looks like, because then it becomes a dogma. You feel it. What is it like to live this? You can ask a 5-year-old, little 5-year-old, if you were the happiest person you could ever be, what kinds of things would you do today? And a 5-year-old could tell you, I would ride my bike and I would go running in the woods or whatever they have, right? They would tell you things that resonate with happiness. And that's all God asks us to do. Center in what you know God to be and then live accordingly. Instead of peace, love, joy. I wish I could do that. Peace, love, joy. I wish I didn't do that. Peace, love, joy. It's all conflicted. Don't get me wrong. We all have a little of the, too far, ADHD. We all have a little bipolar. We swing a little bit, but how much so? How much are we going to do that? And then do we let that pull us off our center? So an example of this might be for example, when you drive in traffic, some people go the speed limit, but there's what you call the flow of traffic, which is usually about 5, depending on the speed limit, 5 to 10 miles over the speed limit, the posted speed limit. So I'm going to typically not drive ultra fast nor ultra slow. I'm going to kind of go with the flow of traffic for the most part. But I noticed the other day that cars were like, boom, by me. And here's the reason. I was in a state of mind where I was going the speed limit or just under. Out of respect, I moved because there's a slow lane for a reason. But people are whipping by. And so what I do is, I didn't say, I'm not going fast enough. What I did was, this is the speed limit in my mind right now. And it just happened to be what was. A few days before that, I'm sure I was going 10 miles over the speed limit because that's what was happening. I needed to get somewhere and this and that. But it's what feels right. I wouldn't want to swing too far to either extreme. But what most serves the moment. But the moment, what kind of moment? The moment that we're centered in God. God doesn't always ask you to drive slow nor fast. It's going to be what's right for the moment. That's why I said it's this duality between the warrior and the saint. We all have them. So think about this for a second. What are your dualities? Bless you. Think about some of those things for yourself. I'm a really tender partner, but you got this really passionate side. So how do we bring those both into reality? How do we bring them both in without only being one or the other, or being one shaming the other, or pretending that you're in a center that you're not? Think for a moment. Just for a quick second here. We'll do a meditation on it, but just for a quick second. What kinds of dualities do you have? Do you have dualities in your parenting? We're so loving in family and yet brutal in your, punishments. It's okay. Don't judge yourself for it. You will never heal these without seeing them and owning them. What are my dualities? Tune into that for just a sec. And then just ask yourself, if I start to balance those dualities, is it easy, or do I see any kind of resistance? Not a meditation per se, but just an initial sense of that. Okay? And all I'm asking just for a quick moment is, how do you respond to the idea of, maneuvering with that? If you heard so far what I've said, do you think it would be easy or challenging to deal with that? Anybody? Easy or challenging? Challenging. Most of you said challenging. Wow, good. Even if you think it's going to be easy, let's just tell you no. It's often going to be challenging. If it was easy, you probably already would have done it. Here's an example. Duality. So I'm kind of a, believe it or not, even though I'm up here and I do this, I'm kind of a quiet person otherwise. And I'm, kind of, private in some ways. In the old days, I was quite private. I came to Unity of Sedona and people were like, who's this person? There's this buzz. Everybody's like, who's this Michael guy? We've heard great things. We want to go see what he's like. But because they wanted to do what often people do, they want to know everything about you so that they can find a way to judge you, and then they could wipe their brow. I thought this was going to be real, somebody spiritual and loving, but now we found fault, so now we don't have to go and listen to him. See, that's what we do as an excuse. We do it with God, Jesus, spirituality, religions. We do it with everything. Find fault so that you can distance from it. So people were coming in looking for all kinds of things. And I found myself going, wow, why would you even want to care? Why do you care? Are you gay? Are you straight? Yeah. Now what? Are you this? Are you that? Okay. Are you a meat eater, vegetarian? No, I don't think so. Well, which one are you? Why does it matter? When were you born? What sign are you? I'm a quadruple Aries with a bad moon rising. I don't know. Why do you ask? And people were like, well, so then what I did was not easy. I just finally went, fine, here. And that's what I did. I stood up here week after week. Take your shots. What are you looking for? Because people, the fault finding, the hate, and standing in a town where there's like this competitiveness, it was quite weird. I couldn't say that every day to anybody. There's not a lot of people I could say, wow, this town is weird. They're like, I live in Sedona. So you can't say that to them. You'll burst their bubble. But gradually I found and heard other people sharing the pain that they were experiencing, being in a place that burns you so badly. But it's good, because when the dross burns away, when all the heavy metal burns away, out comes the gold. But it was not easy. So I'm just sharing one of those dualities for me was I was polarized, a bit more privacy. And they're asking for complete targets to shoot at, which is another extreme. But why does the other extreme exist? Only if you're at another extreme. Okay, open, take your shots, bam, 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 hurt, not hurt, it does this, it does that, scary, it's this and that. Let it take shots, but what's happening is as this is doing this, nature's giving you a chance to now go find peace. Now, I don't feel as extremely private, not that I was extremely, but somewhat, nor do I worry about the other extreme. Now I've just said, here it is. And people could then say, we don't like, and they go, because they tripped on some judgment of some kind, or some of them said, wow, this person completely reveals more than maybe anybody they've ever seen, and they go, he's actually kind of decent. Wow, how did he pull that off? Which becomes in itself attractive energetically or physically to some people, but in itself, it's a beautiful thing. If all of us in this room or in this town or on this planet did the same thing, I have nothing to hide. Here I am. Or as Yogananda says, here I am, love it or hate it. And no secrets, you see? I was brought up as a kid with extreme secrets, like most dysfunctional families, lots of secrets. So it was not easy, nor was it nature for me to go and just sit in a town and have people take shots. But it's like, okay, that's what they do here to spiritual teachers. And, some people go, God, it's terrible what they do to teachers. Yes, it is, because it is not God doing it. It's ego. But what's amazing is not just what they're doing, the opportunity it gives you, if you're an author, a teacher, a healer, because it helps you either shelter up more in defensiveness or drop the defenses and become more open. And I have become all that. And you guys help me do that. There's people that weren't very nice that contributed to my learning that, but what I really dig is the people who were able to do that in a nice way. They were able to see me making micro adjustments. What is it you want to know? Do you do this? Do you do that? And just sharing. What do you want to know? What I eat, what I don't eat, just because they're trying to take shots. Now, that doesn't mean I think you should be transparent to people who are doing nothing but wanting to know things for hurtful reasons. I'm not telling you that. I'm not telling you to tell your 3-year-olds the struggles you have with their father or mother. Oh, I'm just being transparent. The kid's like, I haven't even stopped bottle feeding yet, and you're telling me all this stuff? What? I'm not saying that. Everything in its appropriate, time and place. But to be under a microscope, forget that people will do this. How about doing it ourselves? Then you don't have to have the world do it. Imagine you getting yourself under a microscope. But what do you find? Is there something you're afraid that others will see? Don't wait for them to do it. But if you're going to grow and grow in consciousness, you will not be allowed to be here or vacillating between the two, nor falsely centered. If you want to grow, no secrets, no hidden parts, no stone left unturned. I don't want to think about certain traumas I've had. Why? Are you scared? Let's look at that. Are you shamed? Let's look at that. All of it has to fall away. My suggestion is do it yourself rather than having it done to you. I swear, it's much easier, man. So we're going to take a moment to share some meditation time. Just a few minutes of meditation where we can process a bit of what we've just discussed. So just set aside the stuff of the world. Set aside the thoughts. Even set aside this room. Just drop everything for a moment. When you're inhaling, it's with this intention of I am. On the exhale, at peace. Think of nothing else. Choosing peace. And let's take a moment now. Duality. Where, when, how do you have dualities? They may not be things that you're conscious of. Do you have financial dualities where you preach love and abundance and prosperity, but you don't tithe and you live in fear about paying your bills? Do you have parenting dualities? Dualities as a partner, as a lover? Dietary dualities. The dualities can mean you vacillate to extremes or that you try to be pinned over at one extreme. I am an absolute vegetarian, I don't like meat eaters, would be one extreme. So imagine the one pole or the other, or the two poles that you swing from to. And breathe for a moment. And say these words in your mind. I have no opinions of this. I have no thoughts or judgments about this, being this or that. And try to imagine then the tension of being over there or the other drops. And so the pendulum or the polarity starts to relax and come in. It's like it just calms and it starts to come to you where you're sitting. You're not pinned by an emotion or a belief. We just drop that and notice how the tensions. It's almost like our arms out there being crucified and someone pulls the pins out, the nails out. My arms come in again my lungs, my rib cage from being crucified of life, it calms and I can breathe again. Try to imagine vividly. I'm not divided. I don't have to choose between this and that. There's no one goal pinned to one pole. Like I want this person in my life or a person. All of it drops. What I really want, and this is amazing, what we really want is this calmness, this peace. And if you had a child you cared about, this is the only thing you'd wish for them anyway. So just give yourself the same thing. Like, I mean, if you had a kid, would you pin their arms up and say, be both, be torn between two things? Be the most popular at school, and yet you're shy, so you're going to be torn all the time? You wouldn't wish that for a kid. So give them that same thing. Oh, we get to breathe. No games. No illusions. When you look at your life, ask yourself, which of these types am I most often doing? Pinned between, pinned to one pole or the other? The good girl, the always strong father, one of those? Or secondly, do you tend to vacillate between two things, trying to please others or yourself? Are you pinned more often? Are you vacillating more often? Or are you falsely centered, pretending that none of this bothers you? Which one are you most often? And then let's ask ourselves a couple of questions. Why? Why am I most often like this? And just watch spontaneous answers. It's because I want people to like me. It's because I want to look good. I want to have airs of being spiritual. I'll accomplish more. Ask yourself what it is that created this propensity. And imagine that in your heart and soul is the Christ presence. And imagine that Christ presence connected with the heavens. A pure, perfect light from the heavens, beaming down into your perfect, pure heart. Golden light, heaven to heart. And you have the Christ as a consciousness, God as a consciousness now. And then say to yourself, what, from this place of mind, what do I need to do to release my greatest propensity? To pin, to polarize, or to swing on the pendulum, or to be fake spiritual. What do I need to do to allow that to start falling away? And let the Spirit tell you in your heart. It could be practical, you need to see a counselor. It could be just a statement in your mind now. Forgive yourself. It could be a phrase, you hear the words of Spirit saying, honey, don't be afraid. Let yourself receive an answer and believe in it. It'll be a true answer as long as you're maintaining that you are in that column of light, that golden light from heaven to heart. And in your own way, as we're coming towards a close, take a moment to visualize yourself having the strength and ability. See yourself doing the advice you just asked for. See yourself being stronger, clearer, less afraid, or whatever it is. Visualize yourself in that state of peace. True center. And since center is not a thin line, how is it okay for you to move a little bit to one side or the other? The two dualities. How can you have both in a healthy way so that we give allowance to that? Visualize that for a moment. And feel like it's already happening. This is me. I can do this. This makes sense. I choose not the painful other version of things, and I choose this. It feels right. My center and my center allowing a little movement right and left. I can do this. And close with a consciousness of gratitude, a feeling of saying thank you to your choice, to spirit, and for your new life. Quietly give thanks and then stretch out when you're ready. Very good. I pray this made good sense. Brought up some tears for some of the folks. That's a good thing.